24 hours are huge in this crisis. Now the M23 rebels hold Uvira, now which borders Burundi. They can now successfully cut off supply routes through that country to the DRC, to the DRC official army. What are your thoughts in regards to the developments of the past 24 hours and the seizure of that region?
Well, my thoughts is that the U.S. is looking for every means possible to destabilize Rwanda. That is why they keep parroting the idea that Rwanda backs the M23 rebel. But the same United States conveniently forgets that the Burundi armed forces backs the Congolese government forces. And in order to be able to defend their flank, the M23 rebel has to cut off supply of the support of the Burundian armed forces to the Congolese government forces. And this is war. And in war, the person with the better strategy wins. But pinning all the accusation on Rwanda and parroting it all the time makes me feel that there is a sinister agenda from the U.S. to pin this war on Rwanda, use it as an excuse, just like they did with Libya, to go there and destabilize it. Because Rwanda is a beacon of hope of what Africa could become if we have proper leadership. Since Paul Kagame came to office in 1994, we have seen Rwanda transform from a war-torn country into a country that is moving in leaps and bounds in technological development, in governance, and every other good thing that you can think of. And this was the same way Libya was very prosperous, peaceful, until they started accusing Muammar Gaddafi then of human rights violation, of so many atrocities that were never substantiated after all at the end of the day, to use the excuse in entering into Libya back then. And the destabilization that they wrought on Libya is still causing problems across the Sahel region of the entire Africa, from West Africa to even the Central Africa region, because Libya was destabilized. Yes. And they are trying to do, for me, that's my theory, that they are trying to do the same thing with Rwanda. That's why they keep pinning and keep happening on Rwanda.
Apologies, I was just interrupting you for just a second. Of course, Rwanda has repeatedly denied backing these M23 rebels. How credible are those denials at this stage in this conflict?
How credible is the U.S. assertion that Rwanda is the one backing them? U.S. has been known as a country that lies through its teeth. They've told us that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq in 2003. Till today, have we found one single weapon of mass destruction in Iraq? They've told us several lies over the past decades and century to do things across different continents, from the war in Vietnam to even the Contra war in 87 in the Caribbean and South America. They've told us things that we found out later that it was a different interest that the U.S. government is trying to protect. So if you are asking me how credible is Rwanda's denial, I am asking you back, how credible is the U.S. assertion that Rwanda is backing the M23 rebels?
I just have to say, Ayanuga, before we move on, that the United Nations Security Council has formally noted Rwanda's support for the M23 offensive in Resolution 227, and it called on Kigali to stop backing these rebels and pull out of the DRC. Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, has said that repercussions are coming for Rwanda due to this offensive. What are your thoughts on that, what that might mean?
I think threatening a sovereign nation is something that African Union should rise up and resist, because it is Rwanda today, it could be Nigeria tomorrow, it could be any other country the day after. All this careless talk by the US politicians because they think that they are superpower in the world should be checked. US cannot make itself police of the world. US does not love any country enough to go there for God's sake. They go there for their business interest sake, not because they love peace or because they want peace in any country, but because of their business interest sake. So the threatening by Marco Rubio should be treated as an act of terrorism against another state by the US.
Yes, Ayanuga, do stay with us as we have further updates to discuss. We move on now, and UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has urged Ethiopia and Eritrea to reaffirm their commitment to the 2000 Algiers Agreement, which ended a bitter border war between the two countries. Tensions have flared recently over a maritime dispute, with Ethiopia seeking access to the Red Sea for a port and a military base. Eritrea sees this as an encroachment on its territory, heightening mutual suspicion. Guterres called for both nations to respect sovereignty and territorial integrity, noting that the Algiers Agreement laid the foundation for peaceful coexistence. He also emphasized the importance of continued cooperation for regional development, recalling that both countries renewed their peace commitment in 2018. With rising tensions, the international community has been urged to support efforts to maintain peace and stability. Ayanuga joins us once again. Ayanuga, is this about unresolved border demarcations, of course, a maritime dispute, or otherwise a deeper political mistrust that still remains there after so many years?
Of course, the political mistrust in between Rwanda and Ethiopia can never be done away with. Just like saying Israel should trust Palestinian 100%, or the Palestine government should trust. The Palestine government should trust Israel 100%. No matter how many years of peace, if possible, they are able to enjoy after this recent spate of conflict, there will still be no trust among them. The same thing with North Korea and South Korea. So any move made by the Ethiopians, the Eritreans have the right to look at it with suspicion. And it is the Ethiopian that needs to douse the tension by showing altruism. They are the one who needs a place that falls within the border of Eritrea for their military base. And of course, we have had countries, put military bases. In Djibouti and the Horn of Africa, you see many countries from US to UK to France to China, they all have various forms of military bases in that country, even though they are territorially far away from their own country. But they were able to achieve that through negotiation. So it is Ethiopia's duty to show altruism by making Eritrea safe. But you see, with the conflict from 98 to 2000, that led to the death of about 70 to 80,000 people after the independence or the secession of Eritrea from Ethiopia in 1993. You won't blame Eritrea at all if they are not giving an inch to Ethiopia. They would rather give an inch to maybe another neutral country than to give Ethiopia an inch, knowing fully well that give them an inch, they might likely take a mile. So I don't blame Eritrea on that, and I believe that they should all listen to the voice of reason, because it just as recent as 2018, they still recommitted to the 2000 agreement, saying that they want that peace to continue, and nobody on both sides should do anything that will interfere or damage the fragile peace. Don't forget that Ethiopia itself is having its own internal battle with the Tigray region that was, quelled recently, about 50 years recently now. So they should, with that going on in Ethiopia, the Eritreans are looking at it, they are watching, and the border they share, there are people who share both Eritrean and Ethiopian blood in some of these regions where conflicts are taking place. And with the handling of the government of Ethiopia of the situation, it will make them, of course, have issues in trusting them. So I believe this listen to the UN Secretary General in ensuring status quo remain and peace is sustained in the region.
Yeah, and Ayanuga, what would this renewed conflict mean for the already fragile Horn of Africa region in its entirety? Is there any danger of tension spilling into wider areas?
Of course, there will be dangers of tension spilling into wider areas because don't forget that people who are running away from Sudan are looking for where to run to. So if we have a conflict now breaking out between Eritrea and Ethiopia, where will those people run to? Kenya is watching with keen observation. It is not like Djibouti or Somaliland or Somalia are also super peaceful. They are all having fragile peace that they are maintaining in their region. So any spillover, any little spillover from any of the countries will, of course, have a domino effect that might spiral out of control.
Yes, Ayanuga Olugbenga Paul, thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. It's a pleasure to have you on the programme, of course. We now move on to our next story. And a drone attack on a United Nations facility in the Kordofan region of Sudan has reportedly killed 6 peacekeepers and injured 8 others who happen to be Bangladeshi nationals serving in the UN Interim Security Forces. The strikes targeted the UN peacekeeping logistics base located in the Kadugli city of Kordofan. In response, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has strongly condemned the drone attacks, saying that they significantly amount to war crimes under international law. Meanwhile, the Sudanese army has accused the RSF paramilitary group of carrying out strikes on the UN base, also stressing that the RSF wants to subvert the peacekeeping institutions operating in the region. Moreover, Bangladesh's interim leader Mohammed Yunus has also criticised the strike and has asked the United Nations to provide all necessary emergency support to his country's peacekeeping personnel. We're now joined by Shuaib Chowdhury. He is the editor of The Blitz in Dhaka. Thank you very much, Shuaib, for joining us here on NewsX World. It's a pleasure to have you. Shuaib, Bangladesh send one of the most amount of peacekeepers to the United Nations than any country in the world. Do you think that Bangladesh and Dhaka might reassess how many troops that they supply the United Nations with after this tragic incident?
Thank you very much. As you have mentioned, that the attack took place in Abyei province in Sudan. Abyei is an oil-rich province, and it is disputed by Sudan and South Sudan. Now, according to the latest information, as you also know, that 6 of the members of our Bangladesh army, which includes Corporal Masood Rana and 5 more soldiers, they were killed, and also 8 of the members of Bangladesh army, they are also critically injured. So this is taking place at a time when United Nations peacekeeping force is reducing the number of its members, and particularly a very large number of Bangladeshi contingent were returned from another deployment. So with this latest report of the attack, drone attack in Sudan, of course for Bangladesh army this is a challenging situation, because they may not be interested in continuing in that particular area, because no one wants to sacrifice the lives of their own soldiers for peacekeeping efforts. This is a very complicated situation for Bangladesh army.
Yeah, indeed. And what does this tell us about the security breakdown in southern Sudan here? 6 Bangladeshi UN peacekeepers killed. What are your thoughts, and what sort of stuff are you hearing inside Bangladesh, which is of course the nationality of all the victims in this incident?
You see, there are 4,000 police and army from the United Nations in that particular area. But this drone attack, if you already know that the victims were all from Bangladesh. The total 14, 6 dead, 8 critically injured, all are from Bangladesh and not from any other country. There are troops from other countries also. So it is a very confusing matter to identify why the RSF, even the rapid support force, which is a paramilitary, why they categorically targeted Bangladesh armed forces, members of the Bangladesh armed forces in that particular camp. Why not other places? So this is something possibly our army will investigate, and United Nations will also investigate. But as a journalist, what I believe that, I mean, it is not a kind of the isolated incident that it took place, because it happened where only Bangladesh soldiers were stationed. So this is very strange situation, and I think they will investigate. But as I mentioned, that this particular attack may discourage Bangladesh army from continuing their services in Sudan.
Yes, thank you very much, Shoaib, for joining us here on NewsX World. Pleasure to have you, and thank you very much for taking the time. We now move on and over to Tunisia, and clashes have erupted for a second night between police and youths in the central city of Khartoum after a man died following a police chase, fueling authorities' fears that protests could spread across the country. According to witnesses, demonstrators in Kairouan threw stones, petrol bombs and flares and blocked streets by burning tyres, prompting police to disperse crowds with tear gas. Relatives of the deceased say that they will not remain silent and will spark major protests if those responsible are not held accountable. In a bid to diffuse tensions, Kairouan's governor visited the family and pledged to open an investigation to determine the circumstances of the death and establish accountability. A 52-year-old Indian origin man, VKJ Raj Pandey, was among 4 people killed when a 4-story Hindu temple under construction collapsed in South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal province. The new Aho Bylem Temple of Protection, situated on a steep hill in Redcliffe, was being expanded when a section of the building gave way, trapping workers and temple officials beneath the rubble. Pandey, an executive member of the Temple Trust, had been deeply involved in the project. Rescue teams recovered more bodies over the weekend, but poor weather conditions halted operations. Authorities revealed that the construction lacked approval, raising concerns about the legality of the project. KwaZulu-Natal officials pledged to continue rescue efforts, though hopes of finding survivors are dimming. And that's a wrap on the Africa Brief today. Keep watching NewsX World for more international updates.
In the midst of this, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.
Hello and welcome, I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top headlines of the hour. 2 people are killed and 8 others critically wounded in a shooting at Brown University, according to local officials. Authorities say the gunman remains at large as the investigation continues. 2 US soldiers and a civilian interpreter are killed in Syria after a suspected Islamic State attack on a convoy, US officials have said. The US military says 3 other American troops are wounded and the attacker is shot dead. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres condemns a horrific drone attack on Bangladeshi peacekeepers in Sudan that kills 6 and wounds 6 others. Guterres warns that such attacks may constitute war crimes and says those responsible must be held accountable. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen welcomes the release of Belarusian opposition figures and political prisoners by authorities in Minsk. She says the move should strengthen efforts to free all remaining detainees and keep pressure on Belarus over human rights. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he will meet US and European representatives in Berlin to discuss the fundamentals of peace. He says Ukraine needs a dignified peace and guarantees that Russia will not attack again as Germany hosts ceasefire talks ahead of a leaders' summit. Police clash with youths for a second night in Tunisia's city of Karaoun after a man dies following a police chase, according to his family. The unrest comes as tensions rise ahead of the anniversary of the 2011 revolution and calls for a nationwide strike. Thailand's caretaker Prime Minister says there is no ceasefire with Cambodia and the military will continue operations along the disputed border. The statement comes after calls from Malaysia and a US claim of a truce, which both Thai and Cambodian leaders did not confirm. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi says Beijing is ready to push its comprehensive strategic partnership with the United Arab Emirates to a higher level. Wang cites aligned development goals and strong economic complementary with talks with the UAE's foreign minister. We start this hour in the United States and 2 people have been killed and several more critically injured in a shooting at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island, after a man dressed in black opened fire on the first-floor classroom of the Barus and Holy building, which houses the engineering and physics departments. Mayor Brett Smiley says that police are still searching for the shooter who struck at Brown's Barus and Holy Engineering building where exams were taking place at the time. Let's have a look at what the mayor had to say on the incident.
Today is a day that the city of Providence and the state of Rhode Island prayed would never come. We've heard about horrific acts of gun violence and active shooter situations in other places, but not here. But this afternoon at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we received a call. 4:05 was when the initial call came in to Brown University of a report of an active shooter. I can confirm that there are 2 individuals who have died this afternoon, and there are another 8 in critical status, though stable, at Rhode Island Hospital. Those are the only injuries or casualties that we know at this time. Additionally, we do not have a shooter in custody at this time. There is a shelter in place in effect for the greater Brown University area. If you live on or near Brown's campus, we are encouraging you to stay home and stay inside. If you're not home at this time, we would encourage you not to return to your homes until the shelter in place has been lifted. Brown, Providence, and the FBI are currently in close coordination as they seek to find the shooter or shooters. The shooting took place at the Barris and Holly building, which is a Brown University engineering and physics building. The building contains both classrooms and lab space, too, and so he will be with us at future updates this evening.
Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump, as he returned to the White House from the annual Army-Navy football match, says that he'd been briefed on the situation at Brown University, calling the incident a terrible one. Let's listen in to his statement.
I've been fully briefed on the Brown University situation, what a terrible thing it is. And all we can do right now is pray for the victims and for those that were very badly hurt, it looks like. And we'll inform you later as to what's happening, but it's a shame. It's a shame. Just pray. Thank you very much.
Joining us now is Shruti Dasgupta. She's an international affairs expert and she joins us live from New Delhi. Shruti, as of November the 30th, there were approximately 397 mass shootings nationwide this year. That includes where 4+ people were shot in a single event. This one, however, of course, happened in a place of education. How likely is this incident likely to reignite calls for federal gun reform?
Greetings, Thomas. Thank you so much for inviting me. What I understand is that data shows that unfortunately, despite 300+ events, almost, if we include this one, 400 events of mass shootings and injury or death caused by it, that is still a 20-year low for USA. That means it peaked at around, I think, 22, 23 post-pandemic, where the mental state of a lot of people was not very balanced. And now it's coming down to what they call regression to mean, as in what is the average that they can expect. It is down from last year's also. Last year, I believe it was, I think, 600 odd events. Please do correct me if I'm wrong in these stats. What is alarming is also that it doesn't just occur in one particular state or ideology based in terms of red or blue states. It is equally balanced. So this basically shows that there
what we can do as the Interparliamentary Union to strengthen democracy, to promote human rights, to ensure that humanitarian law is respected.
UN Security Council needs a makeover, a comprehensive reform, and India deserves a position there, a role there.
Prime Minister Modi during Operation Sindoor made it amply clear that war has never been India's choice. We are with the side of peace. We are neither neutral nor indifferent. We are with peace.
We would have dealt with US a whole lot on trade and those kinds of things, and that's not as certain these days. So we have to go back and look at our European partners, our Asian partners.
An opportunity to exchange, to have a dialogue, to have a debate on a different perspective on finding the solution of the conflict.
First thing that is important to have a common ground, and that we do have with humanitarian laws and human rights, but also to say, okay, what does it mean for us as a country to act on these laws and how can we work together?
When we realize that there's something wrong with democracy, the institutions and policies, values come together and we take stock, and it's possible then to improve and chart a new course for democracy.
It's the people's right to self-determination, and if they want to be independent, they should be independent. We will not start a war against Greenland.
In the midst of this, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.
What we can do as the Interparliamentary Union to strengthen democracy, to promote human rights, to ensure that humanitarian law is respected.
UN Security Council needs a makeover, a comprehensive reform, and India deserves a position there, a role there.
Prime Minister Modi during Operation Sindoor made it amply clear that war has never been India's choice. We are with the side of peace. We are neither neutral nor indifferent. We are with peace.
We would have dealt with US a whole lot on trade and those kinds of things, and that's not as certain these days. So we have to go back and look at our European partners, our Asian partners.
An opportunity to exchange, to have a dialogue, to have a debate on a different perspective on finding the solution of the conflict.
First thing that is important to have a common ground, and that we do have with humanitarian laws and human rights, but also to say, okay, what does it mean for us as a country to act on these laws and how can we work together?
When we realize that there's something wrong with democracy, the institutions and policies, values come together and we take stock, and it's possible then to improve and chart a new course for democracy.
It's the people's right to self-determination, and if they want to be independent, they should be independent. We will not start a war against Greenland.
In the midst of this, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.
What we can do as the Interparliamentary Union to strengthen democracy.
Hello and welcome, I'm Thomas Porteous, and we come to you with some breaking news coming out of Australia. An active police operation is underway at Bondi Beach, Sydney, where an event to mark the first day of Hanukkah was scheduled to take place. The celebration, named Chinooka by the Sea 2025, was organised by Chabad of Bondi, and was to feature live entertainment and activities for all ages near the beach's children's playground. Reports emerged that 2 people are in police custody, with authorities urging the public to avoid the area. New South Wales police are responding to reports of an active shooter, with multiple shots allegedly fired at one of Australia's most iconic beaches. Locals have reported hearing gunshots and seeing large crowds fleeing the beach. While it is unclear if there have been any injuries, police vehicles have been seen flooding the area, particularly around Campbell Parade. The situation remains ongoing, with the police urging everyone to stay clear of the scene. Some huge developments coming out of Australia this hour, where New South Wales police say 2 people are now in custody in response to a developing incident at Bondi Beach. We are trying to get the visuals that we have for you now, as we can see police flooding the area there, people fleeing. There is an operation underway. Eyewitnesses have described running and fleeing crowds as the Hanukkah event was scheduled to take place at 5 o'clock local time. This event, named Chanukah by the Sea 2025, was indeed set to mark the first day of Hanukkah, the 12-day Jewish festival, which takes place every year, which marks 12 days of gift giving in the Indo-Pacific nation. Australia, of course, has seen a rise in anti-Semitic incidents recently, and it's run for historical highs for a second year running ever since the start of the Gaza war in October of 2023. Violent incidents have also been on the rise in regards to this. Now, we don't know the motives of the suspects currently. However, due to the nature of the event, analysts and experts are indeed making assumptions that this indeed is an anti-Semitic attack, as reports are of shots fired occur at a Hanukkah event on Bondi Beach, one of Australia's most famous tourist destinations and iconic spots in general. We have seen Australia this year seen frequent attacks on Jewish people in the country, including verbal abuse, intimidation, Nazi salutes, graffiti, vandalism, and physical assaults. This year, running to October 2025, the Executive Council of Australian Jewry logged over 1,600 anti-Jewish incidents, 5 times pre-October the 7th, 2023 levels. Now, we're going to run some unverified visuals from the Bondi Beach, and it shows 2 people in police custody. The visuals posted on social media show 2 individuals on the ground as police swarm around them. There, of course, is no official confirmation of any such arrest, and police are on the site right now. If you're just tuning in, New South Wales have said 2 people are in custody to respond to what they call a developing incident at the iconic Bondi Beach, where they say an operation is underway. We're running visuals that are sourced from X right now in relation to the incident. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese's spokesperson says that they are aware of an active security situation, according to the Reuters news agency, and local media has reported that there is an active shooting on site. However, it is not yet clear if there is any casualties, if anyone else is injured, has been injured or worse in the incident. But of course, a terrible, terrible incident occurring in Sydney's Bondi Beach today, marking the first day of the 12-day festival of Hanukkah. In terms of anti-Semitism in Australia, that's been on a rise. 5 times as many incidents reported in the year of 2025 and 2024 prior to the October the 7th attacks. Australia's Jewish population is around 117,000 people, roughly around 0.5% of Australia's total population. It makes Australia one of the top 10 countries by Jewish populations worldwide. Okay, we're now joined by Dr. Emmanuel Navon, an international relations lecturer at Tel Aviv University and senior fellow at the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security, joining us live from Tel Aviv. Dr. Navon, thank you very much for joining us. Can I just get your instant reaction to this tragic event that's happened in front of us? Of course, we are limited for information right now. However, what we do know is that the event was scheduled to celebrate the first day of Hanukkah. And of course, anti-Semitic attacks in Australia have been on the rise fivefold over the past 2 years. What are your thoughts on this incident, Dr. Navon?
Well, first of all, the symbol is important. It's a holiday that celebrates an event that took place over 2,000 years ago, when the Jews already back then were fighting in their land against the forces that tried to eradicate them. And the Jews prevailed, but those forces that tried to eradicate the Jews unfortunately still exist today. And as for the anti-Semitic attacks that you mentioned in Australia, they are in fact the outcome of intense demonization coming from mostly Qatar-funded propaganda relayed by Muslim immigrants in Australia that demonize the state of Israel and basically forces the Jews to disconnect themselves from Israel, to make a choice. Basically this campaign that consists of demonizing and diabolizing Israel, obviously in itself encourages violence against Jews, because most Jews in the diaspora identify with Israel, and if Israel is such evil, so all Jews are responsible, and therefore they are a legitimate target of jihad. And that is exactly what happened in Australia today.
Yeah, and Dr. Navon, what more can you tell us about the rise in anti-Semitic attacks, not just in Australia, but of course worldwide? Violent attacks like this have also been on the rise. We saw just a couple of months ago a deadly attack in Manchester, England. Prior to that, of course, you saw the 2 embassy workers in Washington, D.C. that were also murdered. What is the impact that October the 7th has had on, and of course Israel's war in Gaza, on Jews worldwide? How is it affecting their safety?
I don't even think the word anti-Semitic or anti-Semitism is appropriate to describe what is happening since October 7 worldwide against the Jews. Anti-Semitism is a hatred of the Jews, and this hatred has existed since before antiquity. What we are discussing today is not whether or not some people in the West or elsewhere still have negative feelings toward Jews and think that they have too much power. That is not the anti-Semitism we're witnessing today. What we are witnessing today, especially after October 7, is a jihadist ideology that wants to eliminate all Jews, which is indeed exactly what Hamas intended to do on October 7 with the support of Iran. And you have this hatred which is also spread around the world by the Muslim Brotherhood and funded by Qatar, that, as I said before, demonizes and diabolizes Israel and therefore the Jews in general. And therefore you have this violence against Jewish community. You mentioned Manchester, you mentioned the killing also at the Washington embassy event about a year ago. This demonization of Israel has consequences, because if Israel is such evil according to those jihadist ideologists, therefore all Jews are a legitimate target, and therefore the word anti-Semitism is outdated to describe this hatred that is coordinated and carried out by the Muslim Brothers and that is funded by Qatar.
Dr. Navon, critics say, of course, that Israel's actions in the Gaza Strip have put a negative perception on Jewish people worldwide. What we can see is a 5 times increase on attacks in Jews in Australia. What would you say to critics who claim that?
That they are wrong, because this hatred and this violence started in fact before. I mean, as a matter of fact, the fact that Israel led a war of self-defense in the Gaza Strip, in Lebanon, and in Iran is a consequence of October 7. It's not the cause of October 7. So those people have the logic backward. Israel defended itself, and any other country would have done the same, would have done even more. In fact, after the 9/11 in the United States, and after the terrible terrorist attacks in France, in Belgium, in Europe, by the Islamic State, NATO armies went into Afghanistan, they went into Iraq, they went into Syria, and proportionally, they made more civilian victims than the IDF in the Gaza Strip. So here is the proof that this argument is complete nonsense. People who want to hate Jews will always do so and find excuse to blame the Jews themselves for this hatred. It was the same thing, by the way, before World War II, when Nazi anti-Semitism and hatred of Jews was always blamed on the Jews themselves, because they were attributed those evil intentions. As I said before, they were demonized and diabolized, and therefore the hatred directed at them was not only justified, but blamed on the victims themselves. This is exactly what we're witnessing today.
Yes, and what actions now can the authorities take, the Australian government take, in order to make Jews feel safe in Australia?
Well, it starts with the Jews, but it never ends with the Jews. Look what happened recently in Belgium, in Brussels. There was a Christmas tree and a Christmas ceremony that was destroyed by Muslim Brothers. So there is a jihad going on today, sir, in the West, against the West, and the Jews are the first target, but they're not the last one. And if the Australian government wants to keep the Jews safe, they have to think about the whole country, not only about the Jews. They have to understand that this immigration they have allowed in Australia without demanding from immigrants to adopt the culture and the principles of the West and of freedom has consequences, because by allowing jihadist ideology grow in Western societies, you have this violence directed against Jews, but this is only the beginning. So of course the Australian government should think about the safety of its Jewish citizens, but not only its Jewish citizens. It should think about the safety of Australia itself and understand what is the source of this violence. And I think the answer is pretty clear.
Okay, Dr. Navon, do stay with us as we just have some further breaking news that have just come out of the situation. The New South Wales Police have just confirmed that 2 shooters have been taken into custody after a mass shooting event at Sydney's Bondi Beach. Police have also confirmed multiple fatalities and 2 shooters having been neutralized. A huge breakthrough there. They've not provided how many people have been killed. Could you tell us a little bit more about what this incident will be like for the Jewish people of Australia, who should be celebrating the first day of Hanukkah right now? However, it is difficult to think that there'll be anything else on their minds.
Well, again, it goes to show that when you have the Jews of Australia celebrating a Jewish holiday, which is over 2,000 years old as a holiday, they are being targeted because as Jews, they are identified by jihadists as part of the Jewish people and of Israel. And therefore, this whole nonsense that the jihadists, differentiate between Jews and Zionists is complete nonsense, because here you have Jews in Australia celebrating a 2,000-year-old holiday being targeted because Israel is being diabolized and delegitimized. And therefore, this global jihad against the Jewish people worldwide is really forcing the Jews in the diaspora to take a stance on Israel because they don't have a choice. And so I think that this is going to be a turning point in the history of the Jewish community and Jewish diaspora in Australia. And this unfortunately confirms a global trend in the free world, in the Western world, regarding the safety or lack thereof of the Jewish community, as I said, as a result of this global jihad which is carried out by the Muslim Brothers and funded mostly by Qatar.
Dr. Navon, of course, we've seen a huge wave of activism across the world since the October the 7th attack, pro-Palestinian activism. Do you think there's a point at which anti-Israel activism tips into anti-Semitism, and how clearly has this line been crossed in recent years?
Well, I think the most efficient way of distinguishing between legitimate criticism and anti-Semitism, of course, criticizing Israel is not anti-Semitic, because most Israelis are very critical of their government and they criticize their own country all the time. That is not anti-Semitic. As the former refusnik Natan Sharansky explained, there are three tools to differentiate between criticism and anti-Semitism, what he calls the 3Ds: double standard, delegitimization, and demonization. Whenever you apply different standards to Israel and to other countries, especially Western countries, whenever your criticism of Israel turns into demonization, into turning Israel into a monster, and finally delegitimization, when you go from criticizing a policy to questioning the very right of Israel to exist, all the 3Ds together constitute the dividing line between anti-Semitism and legitimate criticism.
Okay, if you're just joining us, I just want to say we are covering there's been a shooting and a developing incident at Bondi Beach in Australia, where police have confirmed multiple fatalities at the first day of a Hanukkah event on the iconic Sydney beach. Dr. Navon, I just wanted to ask, of course, online social media plays a huge part in everyone's lives now. What role does online radicalization play in turning grievance into real-world violence? Of course, we don't know the identity of the attackers, their motives, anything like that yet. And so what role does online radicalization play when it comes to attacks like these?
Well, we need to understand the very lethal effect and influence of TikTok. TikTok, which is promoting very anti-Israel, but also very anti-Western ideology. It is a Chinese platform since October 7. TikTok basically has been promoting the Islamic propaganda, promoting a very, as I said, anti-Western and anti-Israel narrative. And this, of course, has an impact on the youth especially, but social media in general. Social media in general spread a lot of fake news, tend to expose people mostly to the opinions they agree with. And of course, this demonization of Israel has a very large echo on social media, especially TikTok. So this is, of course, the influence of TikTok is an issue for Israel, but as I said, it is also an issue for the free world. And free nations today have to get together to fight this scourge of jihad and of this alliance between radical Islam and autocratic regimes such as China and Russia. The free world must get together and understand that the Jewish people and Israel is the first target, is on the front line, but it is not the last one. And if the free world does not get together, does not unite, everybody will be threatened.
Dr. Navon, we have some breaking news coming in. Now, local media in Australia is reporting that at least 10 people have been killed in the attack at Bondi Beach today, while one shooter has been killed in the police response to the incident. More details are, of course, awaited. Dr. Navon, if the statistics turn out to be true, they are what local media is reporting. What can I get? Can I get a response to that? 10 people killed celebrating the first day of Hanukkah on Bondi Beach in Sydney.
Well, it's a horrendous figure, and let us hope that it will not continue to grow. 10 people who are the victims of a age-old hatred towards the Jewish people, and they are the direct victim, of course, as I've said before, of this campaign of demonization and diabolization of Israel and of the Jewish people, and this has to stop. Of course, Jews in the diaspora today know and must know that they have a safe home in Israel, that they should always know that they have where to return, but it doesn't mean that the Jewish diaspora should vanish and disappear, because that would be a victory to our enemies. So there has to be a lot of solidarity between Israel and the diaspora and the free world, but those 10 people who've been murdered have been the victim of this anti-Semitic hatred, as I said, promoted by a jihadist ideology with the support and financial support of Qatar.
Dr. Emmanuel Navon, thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
We will continue to cover this story. However, of course, if you're just joining us, New South Wales Police in Australia have said that 2 gunmen have opened fire at Bondi Beach and they've been neutralised. You are seeing the live visuals right now. Of course, I would like to reiterate that we don't know the motives or the identification of the suspects. We have reports from local media that have said that 10 people have been killed in this shooting. However, this is not confirmed. I just want to reiterate that to our viewers. Of course, we have got some conflicting information coming at us, but as soon as we verify any of the evidence, we'll get it straight to you. We're showing you live visuals of Bondi Beach in Sydney right now, where you see police cars and other emergency services and crowds of people lining the street following this attack, which of course has occurred on the first day of Hanukkah, where a festival was set to start with the Jewish community in the Australian city of Sydney. The event, named Chanukah by the Sea 2025, said it was set to begin near the Children's Beach and scheduled to host many events to welcome in the Jewish festival, which, of course, Dr. Navon says is over 2,000 years old and very, very important to the Jewish people. Okay, we have some eyewitness accounts who have reported that around 20 shots rang out after the shooting, and that helicopters began circling straight afterwards. We're now joined by Charles Thompson. He's an Australian journalist. He joins us live here on NewsX World to discuss this ongoing situation in Australia. Charles, thank you very much for joining us. Australia, of course, has seen a dramatic rise in anti-Semitic attacks since the October the 7th terrorist attacks in Israel and the start, of course, of the Gaza war. Can I get your initial reaction to this tragic incident, which has occurred in such an iconic place in Sydney, and if reports are correct coming out of Australian media, such a terrible event with almost 10 people possibly in a fatal condition? Charles, can you hear me? Okay, apologies there. We seem to be having some network issues. Police for this incident have confirmed multiple fatalities and 2 shooters being neutralised. There are multiple fatalities following this shooting in New South Wales at Bondi Beach. 2 police officers are also reportedly injured, although the severity of their injuries are unknown. Police said it is also not known at this stage if the incident is connected to the Hanukkah event that was taking place on the beach. Of course, it's very important not to speculate in these instances. Of course, we know nothing yet about the 2 suspects that have been what the police call neutralised in this incident. We have limited information, however we are getting it right to you as soon as we can. But what we do know is that there was a Hanukkah event taking place on the beach. 2 people have been neutralised, and that Prime Minister Anthony Albanese of Australia has described the scenes as shocking and distressing. A statement now from the Australian Prime Minister has spoken to the Australian Federal Police Commissioner and the New South Wales Premier. He says that we're working with the New South Wales Police and will provide further updates as more information is confirmed. Police and emergency responders are now on the ground working to save lives. Charles Thompson joins us now, an Australian journalist. Charles, we've seen anti-Semitic attacks rise 5-fold in Australia since October the 7th. Can I get your thoughts on this situation? Of course, we have limited information coming out of it, but we are showing visuals. It's clearly a very serious event. Your thoughts on the current situation and the current mentality and the rise of anti-Semitic attacks in Australia over the past 2 years?
I think your question probably has some of the answers. This is intolerable. This is unacceptable. This should never have happened. There's going to be a huge investigation. The Jewish community of Australia deserve better. And I have no doubt that now a lot more care will be taken to make sure that such an accident or incident doesn't repeat itself. I mean, how did these people get into Australia? Why are they in Australia? How did they get guns? How did they get to a place like Bondi Beach? Now, we must remember that Bondi Beach has had incidents before, not with guns, but smaller incidents. So the police were fully familiar and they knew that there was trouble to be had there. Also, I believe there are cameras on the beach. So there will be a lot of work that now has to be done. And, this is a very sad and tragic.
Okay, we seem to have lost Charles there, unfortunately. But of course, as he was saying, that the gun laws in Australia aren't anything like in the United States or New Zealand. Of course, gun laws in Australia are highly restricted, and that the fact that a reported 20 shots rang out during during this attack is highly unusual for someone to be able to get hold of a gun like they have. Bear with me 1 second. Of course, we are covering this attack that is going on in Australia that has occurred, where 2 suspects have been killed. Charles, of course, brings up the very, very important point that Australian gun laws, licensing, of course, is mandatory. Semi-automatic and fully automatic weapons are tightly controlled in Australia. Most are banned for civilians, except for a very narrow approved amount of circumstances. There are different license categories which you can hold with higher restrictions on higher firearms. However, the idea that an individual accessed a huge tourist spot like Bondi Beach with what sounds like an automatic weapon is a significant moment. Okay. New South Wales have said that the Australian police have neutralised the suspect. of course, police have told certain news outlets that multiple people have died in the shooting, but have not said how many. They've merely said that 2 police officers have been injured. However, reports in local Australian media put the death toll at the number of 10. Okay, that is a wrap, of course, on our coverage of this shooting. However, we will continue to bring more updates as information does become available. Apologies, we have one more breaking coming. Okay. The Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has issued a statement following the active shooter situation at Bondi Beach. Speaking with the New South Wales Premier, the Prime Minister confirmed that authorities are working closely with the police and will provide updates as more information becomes available. In an emotional response, the Prime Minister described the scenes in Bondi as shocking and distressing, expressing his thoughts for those affected. He assured the public that police and emergency responders are on the ground, actively working to save lives. Well, that wraps up our coverage on this live event. We'll of course continue to cover it and update you with all the information coming out of this distressing but developing situation as the day unfolds. Thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. We'll continue to bring you more updates as soon as we get them.
In the midst of death, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.
What we can do as the Interparliamentary Union to strengthen democracy, to promote human rights, to ensure that humanitarian law is respected.
UN Security Council needs a makeover, a comprehensive reform, and India deserves a position there, a role there.
Prime Minister Modi during Operation Sindoor made it amply clear that war has never been India's choice. We are with the side of peace. We are neither neutral nor indifferent. We are with peace.
We would have dealt with US a whole lot on trade and those kinds of things, and that's not as certain these days. So we have to go back and look at our European partners, our Asian partners.
An opportunity to exchange, to have a dialogue, to have a debate on a different perspective on finding the solution of the conflict.
First thing that is important to have a common ground, and that we do have with humanitarian laws and human rights, but also to say, okay, what does it mean for us as a country to act on these laws, and how can we work together?
When we realize that there's something wrong with democracy, the institutions and policies, values come together and we take stock, and it's possible then to improve and chart a new course for democracy.
It's the people's right to self-determination, and if they want to be independent, they should be independent. We will not start a war against Greenland.
In the midst of this, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.
What we can do.
Hello and welcome back to our coverage on the ongoing situation in Sydney, Australia, where 2 suspects have been arrested and reports of a shooting on the first day of a Hanukkah event have taken place. Now, reports have from Australian media have said that 10 people have reported to have been killed in the attack. However, we'll of course confirm those reports when we get the confirmed information. We have some reactions coming in, and Israeli President Isaac Herzog has released a statement on the Bondi Beach shooting. Let's listen in to his statement.
In these very moments, our sisters and brothers in Sydney, Australia, have been attacked by vile terrorists in a very cruel attack on Jews who went to light the first candle of Hanukkah on Bondi Beach. Our heart goes out to them. Our heart misses a beat. The entire nation of Israel misses a beat in this very moment as we pray for the recovery of the wounded. We pray for them, and we pray for those who've lost their lives. We send our warmest strength from here, from Jerusalem, and we repeat our alert time and again to the Australian government to seek action and fight against the enormous wave of anti-Semitism which is plaguing Australian society. Let's hope for better news, and we hope to see them all healing.
We're now joined by Major General Sudhakar Ji. He's an international relations and defence expert, joining us live from New Delhi. Major General Ji, always a pleasure to talk to you. Usually in much better circumstances than this. Of course, this is a hugely significant attack. Police have now confirmed that 10 people have died at this on this attack in Sydney. We do not, however, know the motive of the 2 individuals which are said to have been the perpetrators of said attack. Can I get your instantaneous reaction to hearing this news?
Yeah, Thomas, good afternoon. Thank you for getting me for your show. It's a terrible news to break with, and but this is certainly not expected from a country like Australia. So my heart goes out to the deceased soul. May their soul rest in peace. May God bless them. But having said that, let me tell you that this is the ugly face of terrorism to my mind. Being a geopolitical analyst, I personally feel perhaps the caliphate is extending, or it has already extended right up to Australia and beyond. So this could be a targeted killing of the Israelis who had gone to light the candle on the festival they observe. It could be that, or it could be an extension of the ongoing conflict in the Middle East as a retaliation. Perhaps there could be some footprint, some linkage of the Hamas. And at the moment, it would be too premature to comment. But we have to have patience and await for investigations or some kind of inputs coming to light. Only then we can join the dots and come to a conclusion. But at the moment, I pray for the people of Australia. My heart reaches out to the people over there, and may God give them strength and courage to face this challenge, and let the entire humanity come together, find a common solution to counter the terrorism all over the world. Back to you, Thomas.
Yeah, and of course, as you've said, it's crucial that we don't speculate, and we don't know the suspects' aims here. All we do know is what the police have said, and the police have said that 10 individuals have now been killed in the famous Sydney tourist spot of Bondi Beach. However, what we do know is that anti-Semitic attacks have been rife in Australia since October the 7th. Let's excuse the religious angle of this just for a minute. an attack of this scale happens in a country, especially like Australia, who has extremely tight gun rules, which sees mass shootings on a very, very rare occurrence. What does this signal internationally?
Well, you see, a couple of things are coming to my mind, being a military man. Firstly, it is happening at a place of tourism attraction. And it's a tourist event taking place, and that again goes to reinforce the footprint of terrorism which India in Pahalgam it had actually manifested. The places of tourists or places of interest of tourism are being attacked across the board all over the world. There are a couple of 2-3 more examples which have happened which have not caught the limelight, but two of these are very important. One is Australia, one is India. And the second point that comes to my mind is that at the moment, you're right, it will be too premature on our part to speculate and come to any conclusion. But suffice to say that it is a premeditated act. People have kept the activities under observation, and there are linkages to be actually joined to come to a comprehensive conclusion. So there are handlers, there are forces inimical to the growth story of be it Australia or country like India, and there is a factor of terrorism everywhere. So we need to actually guard against this. We have to be very careful. The police and the security apparatus has to be rather proactive in order to deter these kind of movements by the forces inimical to the safety and the stability of any region. Last but not the least, why Burundi? Burundi has, I don't think in the history they have had any case of terrorist attack. But if this is taking place in a like Burundi in Australia, in Sydney, perhaps we need to actually think much more in detail and find out the root cause as to why is it happening. Is there anything else? Maybe there could be a large number of sleeper cells around Sydney, and so those sleeper cells are being activated gradually by different terrorist groups who are operating, maybe an extension of ISIS. You never know. I have been reading a lot in open source. So let's hold our horse and wait for the findings and the investigation reports to come. At the moment, I would only urge the people not to panic, keep calm, and look around for shelter. Don't move out of the houses. Stay at home and be very safe and secure. Ask for the security from the security apparatus, because it's 10 is a big number. It could be much more. So let's wait for the figures also to come in. And this is a blatant and open, broad daylight kind of attack which is taking place.
Ben Aris joins us as well. Ben, eyewitnesses, of course, and local confirmation says that this did happen near a Hanukkah event on Bondi Beach. This motive, however, is not confirmed. How do global security agencies assess the risk to Jewish communities right now, especially in a country like Australia where mass shootings are so infrequent? Okay, we are joined by Sudhakaji once again. Sudhakaji, same question to you. We have to say this motive isn't confirmed, but how would the global security agencies assess the risk to Jewish people right now? Of course, we've saw embassy security heightened after the killing of those 2 embassy workers in Washington, D.C. earlier this year. The first day of Hanukkah, it's 12 days of festivities. How do you think Jewish people, will be feeling worldwide after this attack?
Is that question meant for me, Thomas?
Yes, it is.
Well, goes without saying, it would put them absolutely insecure, and it would scare them to death, I would say, because it's a kind of a revisit of October 7, 2023. It's something on those lines. They were having celebrations on that day, and it is something close to that only. So if it can happen in a place like Burundi in Sydney, and it can happen anyway. So therefore the Israelis, they have to be doubly safe and secure, and need to protect themselves well, because they could become a target anywhere and everywhere. So that is one point. Second point is, I think everyone in the world has to come together and address it squarely and boldly in a most comprehensive manner. We can no longer in 21st century call somebody's terrorist as a freedom fighter and a freedom fighter as a terrorist. We have to have a common definition, go by the regional interpretation of the meaning, and evolve a counter strategy to deter and address such kind of threats to mankind. Back to you, Thomas.
Yes, Sudhakar Ji, do stay with us as we have an update on the death toll from Bondi Beach. And according to reports, at least 10 people have been killed in the shooting incident. This toll includes one shooter, while one other is reportedly injured and being treated. Reports also indicate that at least 12 others have been injured. This toll may rise. Further updates are awaited. Sudhakar Ji joins us once again. Major General G, of course, since October 2023, we've seen attacks and threats against Jewish communities across Europe, North America and Australia. Of course, this coincides with the October the 7th attacks of 2023. In fact, in Australia, it's even worse with the anti-Semitic attacks since that day 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago now, has increased fivefold. What connects these incidents internationally? Is it online spiraling, online radicalization? What exactly is it that's causing people to take violent action against Jewish communities worldwide?
That's a great question, Thomas, because radicalization once upon a time required people to move physically, report to one particular center of training, and radicalization used to be a theoretical coaching and education, followed by practical handling of situations as to how one undertakes the process of radicalization. These days, the internet and the Gen Z category kind of people and the social media, they have replaced the physical movement. What used to be taught manually and physically once upon a time, way back in 90s, is being done on internet, like it has happened in New Orleans. You had a veteran from Special Forces sometime close to, I think, 20th of January 2025, who drove a vehicle. So it was something on those lines. So like he's been indoctrinated or radicalized by the ISIS. Same is the case with way back in 2016. If you take your mind back, both Germany and France, they witnessed, lorry drivers driving the lorries with steel beams into places of celebration, knocking off 86 people dead and 286, becoming casualties. And a similar thing happened in Berlin as well. And this year itself in Berlin, it has happened 5 times. So these are the new normal of terrorism. One has to be mindful of these kind of things. And on investigation, you will be surprised to learn that both these people in France as also Germany, way back in 2016, they were found that they belong to Tunisia, and they have been indoctrinated or radicalized by ISIS. So same is the case with the American at New Orleans. He had been radicalized by the ISIS. There are many such cases which are coming to light. So therefore we have to guard against such kind of things, educate our people, sensitize them, and undertake anti-radicalization measures and put them into effect in a much more comprehensive and holistic manner. Back to you, Thomas.
Yes, we are joined by Ben Aris. He is a journalist. He joins us live from Berlin. Ben, thank you very much for joining us on this developing situation. Of course, as we've said previously, we don't know the suspects' motives. We don't know the suspects' names. We know very little about this situation. We have a death toll. We have an event which was taking place at the time of the attack. Of course, one can assume that the suspects were targeting the Hanukkah festival that was taking place on Bondi Beach. However, this is not confirmed. Okay, Ben, how close will allies, of course, after that statement that has come out from the Israeli president condemning the attack, will the allies, the US, the UK, the entirety of Europe, be watching Australia's handling of this attack, particularly as this is a Jewish festival that occurs worldwide? Jewish people will be spending time with their families. There will be gatherings of Jewish people worldwide at the start of this festival, and 12 days of it. How will allies be watching this situation?
Very closely, of course. I mean, it's very sensitive in so much as, you know, the Jews felt themselves, or the Israelis have felt themselves under attack since the October Hamas terrorist attack on Israel 2 years ago, as you mentioned. But unfortunately, I mean, this comes in a context of, you know, what I see is the gradual breakdown of the, you know, rules-based value system that we've been trying to build since the Second World War. And we have a cycle of violence now, and that's born out of, you know, the frustration of various groups, be they Palestinians, be they pro or anti-Semitic forces. You know, this cycle of violence is people are reaching for their guns because the rules-based system is not working, and it started with Hamas's outrageous and unjustifiable attack on the Israelis, but then the Israelis countered with the attacks on Gaza, and that's fueled massive anti-Israeli sentiment. And here we have again someone going in, reaching for a gun to make a point, and slaughtering innocent Jews celebrating the Hanukkah holidays. And it's not going away, is it? I mean, we have conflicts around the world. The same in Ukraine-Russia situation, where Putin reached for his gun in order to settle a diplomatic dispute over security, and the same Yemenis sitting firing rockets at ships going through the Red Sea. Sudan, the genocide that's going on there, violence has just flared up again on the Thai-Cambodian border. And it used to be that we could go to the UN and send in peacekeepers and resolve these things diplomatically. But unfortunately, each of these attacks, such as the one today, will just fuel more hatred, more resentment. And, you know, it wouldn't be unimaginable if someone who then targets, in Palestine, for example, takes revenge or justifies the arming of guerrillas and terrorist attacks in order to take revenge on this particular attack. And the way the Australians handle it, I mean, all the governments are going to have to try and talk this down and return everybody to the mentality we had like a decade ago, whereby if you have a resentment or frustration like this, it can be resolved through talks, through mediation, through compromise, through diplomacy, and not through the murder of innocent people and acts of terrorism.
And Ben, do stay with us. We have some breaking news, some reactions coming out after the situation. And UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has condoled the victims of the Bondi Beach shooting in Australia. Talking on X, the British Prime Minister said that the United Kingdom sends our thoughts and condolences to everyone affected by the appalling attack in Bondi Beach. The Prime Minister is also being updated on the situation regularly. Ben, of course, are you saying that this is more of a broader problem in regards to the rules-based order, a systemic issue, possibly, rather than a couple of individuals that have been radicalized online? What are your thoughts about that?
It's both, isn't it? I mean, people have been radicalized online, and then they take these decisions to carry out these heinous acts. But like I said, I do think it's part of a broader systemic problem that was going on with, you know, how we intend as an international community to run the world. And following the Second World War, there was like the Helsinki Accords and the UN Charter, and that was supposed to create some sort of global government to unite everybody under the same ideology of, you know, equality, human rights, all those, you know, principles that we believe in. And what's happened, particularly since the advent of Trump, and I'm not blaming Trump for this, I just think he's a symptom of the changes, is that that's all broken to pieces, and we're now in a much more transactional world, and the ideas, the values that both the states and the Europeans have been championing are falling away, and it's coming down to individual countries, and at this level it's coming down to individual groups who are taking into their own hands the initiative, and unfortunately that translates into violence. And the rise of violence, we're seeing it at the state level. You know, the conflict in Europe, people are now talking here in Europe about rearming, and an arms race is broken out. And at the individual level or groups level, you see, you know, basically what's a war going on in somewhere like Gaza between the Israelis and the Palestinians. And the hatred in the rhetoric coming out is appalling, and it only fuels more violence. You know, I don't want to name names, but you've got ministers calling the people they're fighting against animals, and you know, it's justifiable to slaughter children, which has been going on. And these are all things that are just simply unmanageable. And then the international organizations that are supposed to police all of this, like the ICC, the International Criminal Court, have been sidelined, and their powers have been gutted. So there's no accountability anymore. So I mean, I'm getting really depressed. It's decaying, the whole situation. Whereas we were supposed to, after the end of the socialist experiment in 1991, the world was finally united into 6 billion capitalists. We all had the same ideology, that the conflict between socialism and capitalism was over, and it should have been the start of a golden age. And the first decade after that really was a golden age. These countries started to grow, and they adopted the same laws, and they flourished, and all of those people were lifted out of poverty. Their lives were significantly improved. But 3 decades on, it's turned back into rivalries, and we're seeing it from the top to the bottom in the scale. You know, at sovereign level down to individual level. And like I said before, unfortunately, the people who have these issues with, you know, opponents are increasingly reaching for guns, and we're seeing that at the state level down to the individual level. And it's very upsetting. I don't see how we get out of this, which is why, as you mentioned, the government's reaction to this incident is important. That they need, you know, to bring down the temperatures and say, look, this is not the way to do it. You can't condone. You can't reach for acts of terrorism to make your point, you know, to try and achieve your political goals. We have to do this as a society, you know, and admit there's differences between us and resentments, but we have to do this as a society and work out these problems, you know, as, I don't know, what do you want to call it, colleagues? Members of a civilization.
Ben, Ben Aris, thank you very much for joining us. It's a very difficult topic to discuss, but unfortunately that's all that we have time for this hour. Thank you very much for taking the time and sharing that. Well, that's all that we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more international updates.
In the midst of death, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.
and welcome. You're watching NewsX and I'm Megha Sharma. I'm here at the Embassy of Finland, and joining me right now for a conversation is His Excellency Kimmo Lahtivirta. He is the Finland ambassador to India. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for being with us, speaking to us, and talking about India-Finland relations. How has this relationship evolved vis-a-vis economic ties, vis-a-vis culture, diplomatic ties, as well as people-to-people connect, particularly in the last few years?
Well, I would just first start with political relations, which are excellent. Economic relations are also very good in the sense that our trade volume is about 3 billion euros altogether, counting both import and export of goods and services, and the trend is positive. We have about 100 Finnish companies actively doing business here in India, and we have about 20 Indian companies, for example, in manufacturing sector in Finland. And we do also have a diaspora of about 20,000 or so Indians in Finland, which has grown considerably in the last 20 years or so. So we do have very good connections. We have daily flights between Delhi and Helsinki, for example. And also we have a very good network here in India with our embassy, our consulate general in Mumbai, and then in our honorary consulates in Ahmedabad, Gujarat, in Bangalore, in Chennai and Kolkata. So I think the development of relations has been very positive indeed.
Talking about the recent visits that you have made in all these regions, talking about Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Chennai, Kolkata, why is there a need to further expand the footprint of the Finland embassy, the consulates that have been set up?
Well, I think the biggest motivation is business. We want to support Finnish businesses when they come to India. And I think also the locations where we have honorary consulates, for example, shows perhaps to some degree at least where Finnish businesses have found most promising locations for themselves. But there are also other considerations always, and these are some of the, let's say, states where we have the most cooperation with.
Obviously, the biggest agenda between European Union and India at this point of time is the free trade agreement. Finland has been a proponent of it and has been strongly backing for the European Union and India to sign this FTA at the soonest possible. Why do you think there has been a sudden momentum that this initiative has taken in just the last few months?
Well, I think the geopolitical situation in the world has emphasized the need for predictability and reliable supply chains. And I do feel that Europe and India have a lot to offer for each other, for a mutually beneficial relationship. And that also is the same for Finland, that we see a lot of very good potential in India. And we really see it important that we can develop the relationship so that the business environment is predictable, tariff levels are lower than they have been, and that really the relationship between EU and Finland included can actually obtain its full potential. So that's why I think it's very, very important and very positive also that EU and India are now closing in the negotiations, hopefully by the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about the trade relation, economic ties between Finland and India, what is going to be the direct impact after the FTA is signed?
Well, of course, it will take some time before the agreement is in effect, because it needs to be ratified by both sides, and it will take some time. But I do feel that both bigger and smaller companies will have easier market access, for example, and that's very, very important. And as I mentioned, also let's say the predictability of business environments and regulations is very important aspect as well. Hopefully, also, for example, investment agreement is there, which again would be, I think, mutually beneficial.
It has also been in the talks. It has been very important. TEPA has been signed between EFTA nations and India. Is there any inclination for the Indo-Nordic Summit that has been a great initiative to come up with a similar trade agreement?
Well, I would say that the European Commission has unique, its own competence regarding trade agreements between third countries. So for that reason, a similar agreement is not possible between India and the Nordic countries, as has been between the EFTA countries and India. So it's the EU that negotiates the deals for us. But on the other hand, the India-Nordic summit and environment and platform is also very important, because we do feel that we have complementarities that are useful for both sides. We have technologies, we have scale, and we have all kinds of things which are very, very interesting on both sides related to information technology, sustainability, and so on.
Do you think the changing dynamics in global affairs, geopolitics, especially with regards to the tariff wars that have been waged under US President Donald Trump by America, have brought countries closer together, brought Europe and Global South closer?
Yeah, well, perhaps I could say that these geopolitical shifts have certainly underscored the fragility of supply chains and also the importance of trade diversification. So these developments really have created a need to strengthen partnerships based on reliability and shared values and resilient economies. So for Finland, we see India as a reliable partner here in the Pacific region. And I think this context also has encouraged deeper engagement in building a secure and transparent and technology-driven supply chain between Europe and India.
There have been a lot of initiatives in strengthening the partnership between the two countries, talking about the DESI initiative, digitalization, education, sustainability, and innovation. Could you tell us more about it?
Yeah, well, this is something that we have developed to make it more understandable what kind of sectors we are working in. And if I start with D, meaning digitalization, we are strengthening our partnership in some let's say, critical high-tech areas like 5G and 6G, quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and space. And if I continue to E, meaning education, I think sharing practices and partnering with Indian institutions, for example, in teacher training and vocational skills development is very important. And like I said, we have a diaspora of some 20,000 Indians in Finland, of which about 2,000 are students. So I think that shows also the interest and pull factors that Finland has. But then going forward in these letters, I would say that sustainability is a shared priority as well. And we are helping to create solutions, for example, in clean energy transition, sustainable urban mobility, as well as waste management. And one important event I want to mention already here is the World Circular Economy Forum, which will be hosted by India next year. So this is something that the Finnish Innovation Fund, Sitra, and the Indian Central Pollution Control Board are working together. But then moving on to the next letter I, meaning innovation, we are also linking, for example, our vibrant startup ecosystems and promoting cooperation. And this week actually was held one of the biggest startup events globally called Slush in Helsinki. And we had also Indian startups taking part of it. And in addition to these four letters, we nowadays also like to add a fifth one, which is M for mobility. And this is something that Finnish government has been working for quite some time already with India with their Talent Boost program here. But also I'm happy to say that we are now finalizing an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, on migration and mobility. And I think this will be a very good addition in this sector.
Very interesting, keeping in mind there have been these anti-immigration laws that have been imposed by certain countries and several European countries, including, like you said, Finland and Germany, who are welcoming Indian technocrats with open arms. You spoke about the circular economy, and Finland is a global leader in this sector. How can Finland help India achieve its net zero emissions, carbon neutrality goals, and of course in the backdrop of COP30 that is taking place in Brazil at this time?
Well, I do feel that Finnish companies offer very good solutions, for example, in waste to value, advanced material recycling such as batteries and plastics, also sustainable forestry, energy efficiency and smart grids as well. And I think those are really areas that are directly linked with, for example, India's urban centers and industrial sectors. And that's why, as I mentioned, the World Circular Economy Forum is also a significant step in this sector, because this is something that Finland's Sitra has been working on already since 2017. And it is really the world's leading forum on circular economy. So I think it's important that we bring together the businesses, government, academia, and civil society to consider the best practices in circular economy.
Talking about the United Nations reform and expansion of the UNSC, Finland has been advocating India's participation as a permanent member. How do you think this can become a reality?
Well, if I may start also by saying that we really are strongly committed to the United Nations. And we also stand for election as a non-permanent member for the Security Council for the term 2029 to 2030. But I do also feel very strongly that the composition of the United Nations still largely reflects the world of 1945. And as the world has changed drastically since then, I think that also the decision-making at the UN should reflect the new situation. And therefore also the number of permanent members in the Security Council should be increased. And for example, our President, Alexander Stubb, has said that it is wrong that countries like India are not included. And we do believe that these changes would be necessary in order to maintain the relevance and central role of the United Nations.
There are certain select countries, and in wake of this largely multipolar world, that seem to be, with their unilateral actions, compromising the multilateral organizations in multilateral community in the world. How can India and Finland join forces to stop this unilateralism?
Well, I think it's first of all important that both our nations are committed to rules-based multilateralism, which is anchored in the UN Charter. And we really do believe in multilateralism, and India's expanded role is essential here as well. So I would say that together we must ensure our positions so that we act as bridges for consensus and dialogue on issues that have, let's say, global significance, such as climate change and questions related to peace and security.
I do want to, seek an answer from you with regards to the Ukraine-Russia conflict. Finland is an integral part of NATO and also shares a border with Russia. How can NATO allies come together to find a solution to end this war with Russia?
Well, I think it's very important that all solutions must be based on what Ukraine feels is acceptable. That's the starting point. And Finland, as part of the EU and NATO, will do its utmost to support Ukraine however we can. Everybody hopes that the war will come to an end as soon as possible. But I do feel that also the solution must be just and not rewarding aggressor. I think that's very important.
And of course, we're talking about India-Finland relations. Any prospects of the head of the government of Finland coming to India in the coming months?
Well, I think, our President Alexander Stubb has had already 2 phone calls with Prime Minister Modi this year. And I think it shows the interest on both directions. President has been very vocal on India's role, for example, in the world and significance. So I think both sides have expressed an interest in developing the ties further. And I think in the most recent phone call, Prime Minister Modi also extended an invitation for President Stubb to visit India. And of course, we are now working on finding a suitable time for that visit.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for joining me and speaking to us.
Thank you.
What we can do as the Interparliamentary Union to strengthen democracy, to promote human rights, to ensure that humanitarian law is respected.
UN Security Council needs a makeover, a comprehensive reform, and India deserves a position there, a role there.
Prime Minister Modi during Operation Sindoor made it amply clear that war has never been India's choice. We are with the side of peace. We are neither neutral nor indifferent. We are with peace.
We would have dealt with US a whole lot on trade and those kinds of things, and that's not as certain these days. So we have to go back and look at our European partners, our Asian partners.
An opportunity to exchange, to have a dialogue, to have a debate on a different perspective on finding the solution of the conflict.
First thing that is important to have a common ground, and that we do have with humanitarian laws and human rights, but also to say, okay, what does it mean for us as a country to act on these laws, and how can we work together?
When we realize that there's something wrong with democracy, the institutions and policies, values come together and we take stock, and it's possible then to improve and chart a new course for democracy.
It's the people's right to self-determination, and if they want to be independent, they should be independent. We will not start a war against Greenland.
In the midst of death, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.
What we can do as the Interparliamentary Union to strengthen democracy, to promote human rights, to ensure that humanitarian law is respected.
UN Security Council needs a makeover, a comprehensive reform, and India deserves a position there, a role there.
Prime Minister Modi during Operation Sindoor made it amply clear that war has never been India's choice. We are with the side of peace. We are neither neutral nor indifferent. We are with peace.
We would have dealt with US a whole lot on trade and those kinds of things, and that's not as certain these days. So we have to go back and look at our European partners, our Asian partners.
An opportunity to exchange, to have a dialogue, to have a debate on a different perspective on finding the solution of the conflict.
First thing that is important to have a common ground, and that we do have with humanitarian laws and human rights, but also to say, okay, what does it mean for us as a country to act on these laws, and how can we work together?
When we realize that there's something wrong with democracy, the institutions and policies, values come together and we take stock, and it's possible then to improve and chart a new course for democracy.
It's the people's right to self-determination, and if they want to be independent, they should be independent. We will not start a war against Greenland.
Hello and welcome. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a check of the top headlines this hour. Australian police say at least 10 dead in Sydney's Bondi Beach shooting, 1 attacker killed, 2 taken in custody. 2 people are killed and 8 others critically wounded in the shooting at Brown University. According to local officials, authorities say the gunman remains at large as the investigation continues. Russia shoots down 235 Ukrainian UAVs over multiple regions overnight. 2 of them were shot down over the Leningrad region and 1 over the Moscow region. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he will meet US and European representatives in Berlin to discuss the fundamentals of peace. He says Ukraine needs a dignified peace and guarantees that Russia will not attack again as Germany hosts ceasefire talks ahead of a leaders' summit. Hong Kong's last major opposition party holds a final vote on Sunday on whether to disband as China ratchets up pressure on the city's remaining liberal voices in a years-long national security crackdown. US President Donald Trump warns of very serious retaliation after US citizens are killed in an attack in Syria blamed on Islamic State. Trump says Syria's president is devastated by the attack and stresses Syrian forces are fighting alongside the US troops. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres condemns a horrific drone attack on Bangladeshi peacekeepers in Sudan that killed 6 and wounded 8 others. Guterres warned that such attacks may constitute war crimes and says those responsible must be held accountable. European Union Commission President Ursula von der Leyen welcomes the release of Belarusian opposition figures and political prisoners by authorities in Minsk. She says the move should strengthen efforts to free all remaining detainees and keep the pressure on Belarus over human rights. And viewers, we continue our coverage as the horrific shooting in Sydney's famous Bondi Beach unfolds. Police have now confirmed that both shooters have been taken down. One has been killed on the spot while the other is critically injured and being treated. As for the victims, according to New South Wales Police, at least 10 people have been killed while 12 have been injured in the attack. This death toll remains tentative at the moment and further updates on this front are expected. Meanwhile, leaders from across the world have offered their condolences to the victims and their families, including Israeli President Isaac Herzog and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. In other update, it is now being reported that one of the victims of the attack was the emissary of Chabad House, Rabbi Eli Schlanger, who was in attendance at the Hanukkah party at the Bondi Beach that was attacked. All right, viewers, a significant update now coming in. In fact, New South Wales police have said that a number of suspicious items were also found at the scene and are being examined by specialist officers. An exclusion zone has been established there, and the bomb disposal teams are working to neutralize some suspected devices. An extensive crime scene has been established and inquiries are now underway as per the police that issued its statement. And it also said that there have been no reports of any other related incidents as of now in Sydney. Let's go across to Charles Thompson, who's an Australian journalist, joins us live. Thank you, Charles, for joining us and speaking to us. Charles, have we been able to establish any suspected motive behind this latest killing?
At the moment, nothing's been said in the media, but of course it's quite obvious that with the Israeli-Palestinian issue, that something's happening here. What the sad part about this is not the first time, even though not so severe, that there have been incidences on Bondi Beach with the Jewish community. So what begs belief is that when the Jewish community were having this celebration on the beach, there would have been some form of security, both camera and security police presence. So how these individuals managed to get on the beach with guns just defies logic. I have full faith, though, in the New South Wales Police Force that they're going to do a thorough investigation. All I ask, and I think all Australians ask, that the truth be told and nothing be held back.
And if you've been able to speak to any of your sources, Charles, is there any information as to who these attackers are, where are they coming from, and how did they actually manage, like you said, to enter the Bondi Beach with guns?
Well, I'm actually, as we speak, in New Delhi, the capital of India, and I'm not in contact with any of my colleagues abroad. This has only just happened, I believe, in the last few hours. It's shocked everybody, so we're all learning as we go. I do believe that one of them, their driver's license, New South Wales driver's license, has been found, and it's now being displayed on the media. Now, the important significance of that is that to have a New South Wales driver's license means that the person had to go through a process to live and stay and work in Sydney and in Australia. So there are lots of questions now to be answered. I'm glad that the police have come so quickly and doing the best they can, but we just need to know the full facts.
But this is absolutely tragic and devastating, to say the least, now that at least 10 people have been killed. Charles, it's also particularly concerning that such incidents have been on a rise in Sydney, in New South Wales. We're learning at least 5-fold increase in such shooting spree in Sydney.
This is seriously, this will go down in history as a very sad incident for Australia. And I have absolutely no doubt that the New South Wales Police, Federal Police, and our security services will be doing their utmost. Now, once they've done what they can, they've observed everything, it's then up to the politicians of Australia on both sides of politics to look carefully at this and see what needs to be done in future to deter and reduce such incidences. And it's simply intolerable just to allow people to come in without proper checking. We have done it in the past. I believe we've rushed in a whole lot of people after COVID, and now, you know, there's lots and lots of questions that have to be answered.
Well, definitely. Do stay on with me, Charles. There's some more information now coming in regard to the shooting. Viewers, let's tell you that new footage has revealed the events surrounding the shooting at Sydney's Bondi Beach during a Hanukkah festival that was being held there. A map of the scene shows blue dots marking the locations of unresponsive civilian casualties. According to available footage, it appears that one gunman opened fire from the pedestrian bridge while a second approached the Hanukkah event. The second gunman was disarmed by a bystander before attempting to flee. Authorities report that the second gunman was later shot and killed by the police when he returned to the pedestrian bridge. The investigation into the shooting is ongoing, with more details expected as the police operation unfolds. All right, let's bring in Charles back into the discussion here. Charles, we have a rough map as to how the shooters entered the area. They used the pedestrian bridge, and how the second shooter was taken down by the police. So clearly, I think that is going to help the police in investigating the route that they took and where they are coming from.
Oh, absolutely. And I have every faith in the New South Wales Police Force that they're going to do a very thorough investigation. I think the issue for all of us as Australians, from all religions, all beliefs, is to ask the question, what can be done in the future as we go forward to not allow such events to happen again? And this is a big question mark on the government of the day. Regardless of what side of politics you are in, those politicians who are leading the country, whether it be the Premier of New South Wales, the Prime Minister, Foreign Minister, Home Minister, have to reflect and look very carefully on what needs to be done going forward.
Well, definitely. Ben, there's also some information now coming in regard to the Australia's Jewish Association. Let's tell our viewers that, and do stay on with us meanwhile. Viewers, let's tell you that the head of Australia's Jewish Association, Robert Gregory, has called the shooting at Sydney's Bondi Beach during a Hanukkah event a tragedy but entirely foreseeable. Gregory criticized the Albanese government for failing to take adequate action to protect the Jewish community, despite repeated warnings. Authorities have yet to confirm the exact motive behind the attack as the investigation continues. All right, let's have Charles back into the discussion here. Charles, the Jewish community there on its head is saying that the event was, the attacking was entirely foreseeable. What kind of warnings were issued that he claims were ignored by the police there?
Incidents on Bondi Beach. The Jewish community has been very vocal. Our Prime Minister must answer for this. This is unacceptable. There has to be an explanation, and it has to be made clear to the Australian people that people coming from war zones, from countries where there are disputes, have to be vetted more closely, and a lot more scrutiny has to be applied to them. It's simply untenable in today's day and age, where there are so many problems happening around the world, that these problems are then transported by citizens in those countries to Australia. We have a very vibrant, large, multicultural community. Most of them are law-abiding and peace-loving people. We simply do not need people from those regions where such violence is taking place. And the government has a lot to answer for this. And in the next coming days, a lot will come out, I'm sure, on the issue of who these people were, how they came to Australia, what they were doing, and how they were allowed to stay in Australia. And even more interestingly is, how do they get to the beach with guns? See, in Australia you can't just buy a gun and walk around with it. You know, it has to be licensed. So there's a number of questions here.
Ben, do you have any information as to whether there was already anger and discontent seething within the Jewish community? Because this particular statement from the rabbi seems to say so.
Absolutely. In fact, we had this bizarre situation where a High Court judge or a Supreme Court judge allowed the Sydney Harbour Bridge to be closed. Now, I understand the Palestinians had suffered, but there was absolutely no reason to close the Sydney Harbour Bridge and have a bunch of people, hundreds of thousands, walking across and protesting. This, all it did was inflame the difficult situation between the Palestinians and the Jewish community. And I think a lot of reflection has to be thought of how going forward we don't allow events that are happening overseas to take up such big iconic moments. Let's not forget, this was pre-planned. Bondi Beach is a very famous and iconic part of Australia. When you come to Sydney, one of the first things many tourists ask is they'd love to go and visit Bondi Beach.
Yeah, certainly. There's some information now coming in from eyewitnesses. Let's give viewers the eyewitness account. Viewers, eyewitnesses have described the horror that they saw on the Bondi Beach earlier today. Let's listen in.
I ran onto the beach. I guess everyone ran onto the beach. It was pretty terrifying. And yeah, I eventually went back to see what was happening. A few people helped a few old people get up and get out of there, but it was like there were lots of bodies on the floor. It was a fenced-in event. It's kind of like I don't know, fish in a barrel. Like the guy had I think of what I've been told, he had an automatic rifle, big gun, standing on the bridge, and just target practice.
So I was out at the restaurant over there and I was just serving I think I was taking away some dishes, but I was nearby the front and, you know, I heard these shots go off and I knew it was gunshots immediately, but I didn't really register it. So I just sort of saw them all the way over there, just people start running and I'm going, well, maybe it's like a one-time shooting, not like it's not America, like not a massacre event, but turns out it was, and the whole shop just like stood up and we all just ran into the back exit and everyone was pushing everyone. There was no like semblance and we just ran in through.
All right, I now request Charles to join us back here in the discussion. Charles, very interesting what the eyewitnesses are saying. They're actually comparing the incident to the shootings in the United States, and let's remind our viewers, one took place at the Brown University just this morning, and also now this incident reported from Bondi Beach. Australians, I have to say that shootings there are not as frequent as in the United States. How would you react to that statement?
You see, in Australia we have very strict gun laws. It's not easy and it's very difficult to obtain a gun. So the fact that these individuals even had a gun in their possession is a big question mark. It's not like the United States where it's your right to get a gun. So once again, there's so many questions that have to be answered about this. This is not a one-off. To actually manage to get a gun, to go at an event with the Jewish community, that too on Bondi Beach, that too when the security services and the police knew an incident could happen, right? So this opens up many, many questions that have to be answered and understood. So this is not a one-off event. This is a serious event. It's a terrorism event. No politician can cover this up, and we need to know the full facts. All Australians want to know the full truth of why this happened, who these individuals were, how they got the guns, how they got their visas, why they were living in Australia.
All right. I'm sure these are the questions that are running on everybody's minds, and not just not just the people in Australia, but everywhere in the world. For now, thank you, Charles, for speaking to us. And with that, viewers, we're now going to move on. Now, in some news on the Russia-Ukraine war, the Russian Defense Ministry confirms that their forces intercepted and destroyed a massive wave of Ukrainian drone attacks overnight. Officials confirm that air defense systems shot down 235 Ukrainian unmanned aerial vehicles during the night. The ministry reported that on December 13, between 8 p.m. and 11 p.m. local time, the Russian forces destroyed 94 aircraft-type drones. The attacks continued through the night, and from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. on December 14, air defenses intercepted and eliminated another 141 drones. Authorities said the drones targeted multiple regions across Russia. Air defense units shot down 35 drones over the Bryansk region, 32 over Crimea, and 22 over the Krasnodar region. Other interceptions occurred over Tula, Kaluga, Kursk, Rostov, Belgorod, Leningrad, Novgorod, and others in the Moscow region. On the other hand, the Russian Ministry of Defense in its latest report says that the Russian forces attacked several Ukrainian military industrial enterprises and energy systems related to their operations using land-based and sea-based high-precision weapons, Kinzhal hypersonic missiles, and long-range unmanned air vehicles. And let's have Gilbert Doctorow join us into the discussion here. He's a Russian affairs expert and joins us live from Brussels. Thank you, Gilbert, for joining us here in this discussion. Of course, news coming in from Russia of it downing as many as 235 UAVs over those entire regions that we just told you about. But shellings are continuing from the Ukrainian side, even when it says the army is fatigued, infrastructure is attacked, and Zelensky claiming that he is ready to hold election if he's given the security from Europe and US.
Well, I'd like to start with the question of the number of drones that were fired or set off from Ukraine and were downed in various regions of Russia. That is about 5 times the normal daily reporting of the Ukrainian drones heading into Russia. But it's about the same level as daily Russian drone attacks on Ukraine, which are usually, in the Russian case, accompanied by hypersonic missiles or other missiles. And the drones are often, in the Russian case, used to distract the air defenses while the missiles do the destruction that was needed. Let's note that this attack, massive waves of drones by Ukraine in the last 24 hours, comes on top of their very significant strikes along the Volga and Saratov area in the past couple of days. So the drone war on the Ukrainian side remains viable, demonstrates remarkable targeting, and sometimes gets through and does genuine destruction on the intended targets. And this is the hallmark of the evolution of the war towards drones, as opposed to the grinding artillery strikes that were typical of the first couple of years of the war.
All right, do stay on with me, Gilbert. There's now news coming in from Iran as well in this regard. Let's tell you, viewers, that Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi is set to visit Russia and Belarus in the coming days. The trip will take place within the next 2 to 3 days. And according to Iran's foreign ministry, the visit follows high-level engagement between Tehran and Moscow. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin in Turkmenistan. The meetings underscore Iran's continued diplomatic outreach to key regional allies. I request Gilbert to join us back into the discussion here. Gilbert, what do you think Iran has to offer to Putin in this meeting, and what does it have to take?
Well, I think there will be an intensive exchange of information because both sides have a lot to discuss in the latest developments in the Middle East and elsewhere. The strategic cooperation treaty is being implemented by meetings like this. I think that Iran is interested in Russia's position, for example, with respect to the slaughter of several Americans' forces in Syria, a neighbor, and what kind of reaction may come out of Washington that they both would be intensely interested in. So that is one topic. The latest developments in the peace negotiations that Mr. Putin can apprise the Iranians about, of course, is another issue. But if you look at the daily news, it's been such a flood of developments of interest to both countries in the last week or two that they have a lot to talk about. And of course, best to do that confidentially, face to face.
All right, we'll watch out for that meeting. But thank you, Gilbert, for joining us for now here at NewsX World. And with that, viewers, let's shift to some news coming in from Hong Kong. where its oldest pro-democracy party has announced dissolution plans. Founded in 1994, it was once the city's leading opposition force, winning elections and pushing Beijing on democratic reforms. Senior members say Chinese officials or intermediaries want the party to shut down or face serious consequences, including possible arrests. At least 75% majority is needed to approve dissolution, with liquidation plans already underway, including the sale of its headquarters. The vote follows Hong Kong's patriots-only election overhaul and comes a day before a key national security verdict for media tycoon Jimmy Lai. Critics say the security law has crushed dissent. Beijing says it has restored stability. Now moving on, viewers, scores of Cambodian families are fleeing border areas as fighting between Cambodia and Thailand continues. In Bantay, in Miache provinces, displaced Cambodians have taken refuge in evacuation centers as clashes continue after being forced to escape amid shelling and gunfire. Evacuees describe moments of panic as bullets flew and families ran for their lives, leaving homes and livelihoods behind. Many are now sheltering in temples and makeshift camps under difficult conditions. Food, clean drinking water, and sanitation remain in short supply, making daily survival a struggle, especially for children and elderly people. Authorities say that more than 100 evacuation centers are operating across 6 provinces, housing around 130,000 people. Aid workers warn the scale of displacement is far greater than previous clashes, stretching local resources. With fighting ongoing, families fear essential supplies could soon run out. And before we wrap up this bulletin, let's give you some updates on the Brown University shooting. Viewers, authorities have confirmed that 2 students are dead and 9 others injured after the shooting at the university in Rhode Island. Several victims remain in critical condition and officials warn the casualty count may rise. The shooting occurred at 4:05 p.m. local time near the Beres and Holly building. Police say the male suspect, dressed in black, fled on foot and remains at large. Officers briefly detained 1 person but later released them after ruling out involvement. A shelter-in-place order remains in effect across the campus as more than 400 law enforcement personnel continue the search. US President Donald Trump says that he has been briefed on the incident. Students remain locked down as the investigation continues. Let's listen in to a student from the Brown University.
I'm shocked, but I'm not surprised. And I think that that's probably a sentiment that a lot of students also have here. It's like, obviously you never expect it to actually happen, but it's not surprising because we see how often it happens. I've been in my dorm room since it began. I was planning on leaving my dorm at within the next 30 minutes to go to a library, but obviously then everything happened. So I've been in my dorm, so I've been safe. But I'm probably like a 5-minute walk away from where the shooting was. So I didn't hear any gunshots, but like I can hear the helicopter right now. I heard the first responders when they showed up. So yeah, thankfully none of my friends were in the actual building. There were a few that were at the library right next to it, but they were just kind of all brought to like one common area. So you know, they're safe. They're just, you know, I'm sure they're hungry and tired and want to just go back to their dorms. I do know of someone who has a friend who was in the building when the shooting happened and said that it seems like she wasn't near, the building's pretty large, and so it seems like she was probably on the opposite end of the building, because she said she did hear gunshots, but they were very muffled. The building where the shooting was is like kind of on the edge of campus already. The street behind the building is a residential area, and so the shooter kind of walked off campus immediately after the shooting ended. So I don't think they really have a good understanding of where he is, but until then, we can't move.
All right, and that's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for all breaking news updates from around the world.
beach at Archer Park. This cowardly act of terrifying violence is shocking and painful to see and represents some of our worst fears about terrorism in Sydney. I very sadly need to report that as of now, there are at least 12 individuals that have been killed. One of the offenders has also been killed and one is in custody. This attack was designed to target Sydney's Jewish community on the first day of Hanukkah. What should have been a night of peace and joy celebrated in that community with families and supporters has been shattered by this horrifying, evil attack. Commissioner Lanyon will speak about the investigation, the police response, as well as the designation of this attack as a terrorism event in Sydney. I can assure the community it will be met with a massive, comprehensive police and public order response. Our heart bleeds for Australia's Jewish community tonight. I can only imagine the pain that they're feeling right now to see their loved ones killed as they celebrate this ancient holiday. It's the responsibility of all Australians to wrap their arms around Australia's Jewish community and help them get through this incredibly difficult period. This is a massive, complex and just beginning investigation. It's just begun, and there are things that tonight we don't have the answers to. However, we do have answers to some crucial pieces of information for our wonderful city and our beautiful state. The first one is the outpouring of love and support from ordinary Australians for Australia's Jewish community is real. Secondly, today is another example of the enormous pressure and responsibility, the danger that New South Wales Police regularly face as part of their job. They do it without faltering. They didn't falter today. We need them. And thirdly, tonight saw extraordinary acts of personal courage and bravery from individuals in our community. And I think it's worth remembering that in all of this evil, in all of this sadness, there are still wonderful, brave Australians that are prepared to risk their lives to help a complete stranger. Mel?
Thank you, Premier. Good evening. Premier has outlined the brief circumstances this evening. I'll go through them again. They're more than happy to take some questions. About 6:47 p.m. this evening, police started to receive a number of reports of shots fired at Archer Park at Bondi. Archer Park is a grassed area just north of the Bondi Pavilion. Police responded promptly. Unfortunately, at least 12 people are deceased at this time. 29 people have been transported to various hospitals around the Sydney area, including 2 police officers. The condition of those officers and the other transported are serious, but there is a range of conditions. Our thoughts, prayers and love go to all the families and all of those that were involved tonight. We know that there were many people there to celebrate a happy occasion, the celebration of Hanukkah, and there was well over 1,000 people there when this took place. As a result of the circumstances of the incident tonight, at 9:36 p.m. this evening, I declared this to be a terrorist incident. I have also authorised special powers under Section 5 and Section 6 to ensure that if there is a third offender, and we are currently investigating that at the moment, we will make sure that we prevent any further activity. Section 6 allows us to investigate today's incident. There is a massive police response, and I think as journalists you have seen how quickly and promptly the police responded. I'm incredibly proud of the professionalism of our police and emergency service responders. They have done a fantastic job. Unfortunately, it's only several years ago that Bondi occurred, at Bondi Junction. We have learnt a lot from that, and tonight ambulance and police and other emergency responders acted promptly and professionally to do a great job there. We will have a significant investigation. Our Counter-Terrorism Command will lead this investigation with investigators from the State Crime Command. No stone will be left unturned. This type of disgraceful activity, this wanton use of violence, the taking of innocent lives is unacceptable to New South Wales. It's not our way of life. I've been very clear since I've been the Commissioner that as a police force, we won't stand for this type of violence. I'm personally offended. You have seen that the police have already taken prompt action. The Premier has mentioned one of the offenders is deceased, the second one is in serious condition at hospital. We will focus to ensure that there is no further threat to the public. Could I ask, but this is a time of calm. This is a time where I want to make sure that there is no retribution. The police are investigating thoroughly. We have acted promptly. We have taken decisive action. Could I just ask for calm in the community? Allow the police to do our job. We will work closely with community and I'll continue to provide updates about the investigation as they go on. Thank you. I'll hand over to the Minister and then happy to take questions. Sorry.
Do we have an age range of the victims? Obviously, it's early days, but of those deceased?
No, very early, sir. I don't have those details at the moment. As you can imagine, there has been a fair dislocation. The ambulance service responded brilliantly. They've had to convey people right around the city to numerous hospitals. So at this stage, we don't have those details.
Commissioner, there's the 12 people...
Sorry, can I just ask one at a time? Sorry.
Commissioner, do you have any intelligence about the 2 shooters?
We're working through that at the moment. Obviously, part of the declaration is because I have information about the deceased shooter. It's not something that I'm prepared to give at the moment. It will be part of the investigation, but we will work tirelessly through our counter-terrorism command to make sure we investigate all of the circumstances.
Commissioner, the 12 people that are deceased, do they include the gunman that is deceased, or is the gunman additional to that 12?
We've set up to 12 deceased at the moment. This is a really fluid situation. I would like to provide more certainty, but certainly the numbers that we are talking at the moment include the gunman.
Were any children among the deceased?
At this stage, I don't believe so. However, I do believe that a child was transported to hospital. Again, I don't want to give information that turns out to be incorrect. It is very early. We know that there has been a number of people turn up to hospital. We've had 29 others transported, and we know people are still turning up there.
What gives you reason to think there might be a third gunman?
Unfortunately, in these sort of circumstances, we get information from a range of areas. We tend to be as safe as we possibly can so that we know that we have 2 definite offenders, but we want to make sure the community is safe. So we will run down this investigation. The reason that we have so many investigators out tonight is we can make sure that that happens. The fact that we've declared this as a terrorist incident, we've provided special powers, is to make sure that we prevent any further. I cannot confirm there is a third offender, but I want to make sure there's no stone left unturned.
Some news outlets are reporting a home in Bonnie Riggers being raided. Can you confirm that?
No, I'm well aware on social media that an identity of a person believed to be one of the gunmen has been circulated there. When I ask for calm, that is really important. This is not a time for retribution. This is a time to allow the police to do their duty. So police are responding to make sure that all of the community is safe. That is our role.
What can you tell us about public order riots, what officers